Hi everyone, good morning Los Angeles, good afternoon Brazil, boa tarde Brasil, bom dia Los Angeles. Eu tenho prazer de começar o meu painel. I have the pleasure to start this panel with Eric Scott Gould, talking about acting career in Hollywood. He is an actor, writer, producer, and director here in Hollywood. Eric?
You are indeed. Very well done.
We have so much to talk about. This time we decided to do something different. You may agree with me that we wanted to go from super serious panel with PowerPoint presentations to a very nice chat about Hollywood career, about things that you can share with people that just want to start an acting career and know a little bit more of how to start, how to continue, how to stay on the top and things like that.
Indeed.
Indeed. So how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in Los Angeles. You are as well?
I am in Los Angeles as well, but we have people in Brazil that will have access to this panel, not only now, but also after the festival. Just reminding everyone that our festival started on Wednesday, the 21st, and goes until the 25th, which is tomorrow. And I take the time to invite you, Eric, to our closing night. It's a gala night, but it's all on the platform at the Democracy.
Wonderful. I'll be there. Thank you.
Nice, nice. So you ready to talk about Hollywood?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So first, we're going to start talking about your career because we all want to set an example here, right? So you started a long time ago and you have big shows on your plate. And one of them is one of my favorite ones, which is Without a Trace. And how did you get to act and how did you get booked for that role? Like how people get booked for roles like that?
Well, in that particular case, Without a Trace, it was a CBS 1-hour procedural drama that dealt with, the premise was it's a missing persons unit of the FBI. And so there was this central crew and I was one of the recurring guest stars and I played one of the FBI agents on that show. In this case, how I got the job, which is a big part of everything in entertainment in terms of the business and also, of course, in life. And that particular job was through a relationship. I have a dear friend named Hank Steinberg, who is a television writer, producer, showrunner, and creator. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I met him through his mother, who was an actor who I acted with in New York years and years and years ago. When I subsequently moved out to Los Angeles, she was in touch with me and I had heard about her 2 children, both of which were about my age for years, but I had never met them. They were already on the West Coast. This was in New York when I knew her. So when I came out to LA, she made sure that I met them and we became instant friends. And Hank at the time was beginning his career, didn't have a writing agent yet. He had written some spec scripts. And little by little, that perseverance and his talent and relationships, he was able to set up some projects and then got Without a Trace bought by CBS. And when that happened, he said to me, "Hey, want to be on the show?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So I hope to think that, he has a lot of friends and a lot of relationships. I hope that, the reasoning behind that, he had seen my work, he knew my work. So I want everybody to understand this, that as important as relationships are, you have to be ready when the opportunities come, right? And we think of things like luck as being, like in Las Vegas, roll the dice and throw them and hopefully something good will come up. But that's more about random sampling as it is about luck. And I think luck is something that we can manifest and we can control. And many of you may have heard this before. It's a little cliche, but I think it's true that the definition of luck is when preparation meets timing. meaning everybody gets opportunities. Opportunities will come our way, but it's important, A, to identify an opportunity when it comes, and B, be ready for it when it happens. You have to be able to deliver, because if you can't deliver, then, then what's the point? And opportunities don't always look like how we imagine them. For example, when I first got out to Los Angeles, I was in graduate school. I was at the Yale School of Drama. I got my master's in acting. I finished in 1998. I had already been acting before that and decided to go in New York and decided to go back to school. When I was at school, there was a director I worked with, also a student, and she had a strong theater career before school, had relationships, and introduced me to a manager, a talent manager representative out here in Los Angeles. And so and getting out of Yale, I had a lot of offers from big agencies and all of these things. I was taking meetings all over town. And so in my mind, I was almost kind of doing her a favor. And so I spoke, which is so odd, but I spoke to him, and we decided to meet. And so he sends me the address. This is when, I don't know, for those of you in Los Angeles, there was something called the Thomas Guide. So this is before all of our phones and all of this. It was a Thomas Guide.
Quest, there was Thomas Guide. Yeah, remember?
Right? A thick book like this. And all it is maps of Los Angeles. And so you kind of go and you find the street, and then you got to find the page, and you figure out how to get. So I drive across town with my Thomas Guide. And as I start to approach, I realize, like, this is a residential neighborhood. And, right, I'm expecting to go to an office building, right? In my imagination, he, as a manager who's successful, he should have a fancy office in a high-rise building and all, right? Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I pull up to a house in a residential neighborhood, and all of a sudden, the garage door starts going up. And there he is, and his office is in his garage. So before I even get out of the car, I've decided this is not for me. This is ba-ba-ba-ba. To make a long story not so short, I loved him. We got along very, very well. We had a lot of things in common. He had been in the theater in the past also before coming out to California. He was trained as an actor originally. So there were a lot of things. And so I just liked him, and I decided to work with him, though maybe not as enthusiastically. So all of this is to say, that gentleman working out of his garage, 2 years later, launched, Achy Breaky Heart, his daughter, Miley Cyrus. He broke Miley Cyrus's career about 1.5 or 2 years after that, all right? And then his career took off. So all of this is to say that opportunities, we have to identify them when we see them. They're not always obvious. Things don't always look like how we expect them to.
Sometimes we judge from what we see, but we have to kind of like go with it and just see before you make your final decision, right? Like you stopped in your car and you already thought, oh my God, this is not for me.
Not for me.
I had many situations where I felt just like you. And then I decided to give it a chance, and it completely changed my way of thinking, just like you did.
Yes. And, that's important, because if we remember, yes, the clickbait on the internet, or the articles and all of, the lifestyle pages. And now, we'll talk about this with even top celebrities that are very conscientious about their Instagram and branding and product placement and being influencers and all of those things. All of that has changed so much, but it appears so glamorous, right? We go into dark rooms and there's a huge screen, and we see all of these fascinating people telling stories on this massive screen in front of us. But actors, in film and TV spend the majority of their time in mobile trailer units, right? On some set somewhere or on some location somewhere. The actual time we spend doing the thing we love is minutes at a time, and then it's hurry up and wait and go back to the trailer and sit and we'll call you, you know. So it's the glamour for me is all about the doing of the work, the love of the work. And this is a very, very important thing for everybody to, I think, hold on to. It's never about a job. It's not about a job. It's about a career. It's about a life. And
I think what you said about also being ready for the opportunities is very important. I say that because I'm getting so many questions here for you, and hi everyone, I'll get to all those questions. We're just entering the subject. But when you said about being ready for the opportunity, I think you're 100% right, because many people want something so much just because they know they will have the spotlight, they know it's a nice opportunity, they know they can get recognition. And I felt like that so many ways as well. And I know everybody can relate to that. But sometimes having the opportunity in the right time and you're not ready for it, you just have to pass, you know, because I say that for my own example. I wanted something so badly one time, but I wasn't expecting that I was going to be chosen for that. And then I took the job and I was terrible at the job. Terrible, because I have a lot of experience in a lot of things in that area, but that specific thing I didn't. But because in my head, I wanted so much, I said, you know what, it will be a piece of cake to do it. So I'm just going to take the job. It was in another country, in another city. And I learned so much from it doing it, but I wasn't prepared for it. So I just sometimes, or you either get 100% prepared for something, or you just have to pass that opportunity. So I advise you, like you did, be ready for it.
You do, and what you're saying is very, very important. And you know, this you know very well. I'm not speaking about your situation, but you know, one of the things about acting and entertainment, whether it's acting or writing or being a musician, directing, producing, all of those things, but particularly on the creative side, we do something that is so personal and is also something that is meant for consumption of the masses. Meaning the work that we do is viewed, is watched, is, you know, and much of the world uses what we do as an escape from their lives, an opportunity to live vicariously through the storytelling and escape and, you know, go back to their own lives. And so, unlike many other fields, everybody in the world has an opinion about actors, about movies, about, right? Loved it, hated it, this person's awesome, that person's crap, all of those things. And there's a perception, and this was told to me long before I even started thinking about acting. People would say, hey, you know, you're charming, you're funny, you're this, you're that, you should be an actor. You know, and when I went to college, I was a molecular and cellular biology major. I wanted to be a doctor when I started, you know, and then I found it. But a lot of people across America, across the world, you know, I suppose in Brazil, you know, captain of the football club, everybody's like, hey, you should be a performer. You're good looking. You're a great athlete. You're you know, and we have this idea, because everybody has an opinion about what we do, that if somebody's good looking or has a good personality, or that they should just be an actor. You wouldn't say to somebody, for example, who, you know, you're in science class with somebody and they're able to do a mathematical equation, you wouldn't say to them, you know, you should be a nuclear physicist. They go out tomorrow and do it. And that's one of the things about young actors in particular that I really want to be clear about, you know, and there's no substitute for training. And people can walk and talk. People can memorize a script and say words. But without a process, actors are focused on things like being natural or being organic, and that's not an art form. Being natural and organic for me is not enough. And so it's super important to be able to train and to learn the skills necessary to empower yourself. If I was going for open heart surgery, I would want a doctor that's done that procedure 1,000,000 times, not somebody who slept in a Holiday Inn Express last night. You seen those commercials? I don't know. Right? And by that same notion, hiring an actor, working with actors, when you have trained people who know what they're doing, it's a joy. The actor's job is to act, not be told what to do by a director, right? Directors, especially in film and TV, the vast majority of them don't have theater training the way they used to. Back in the day, directors, the majority of them came from the theater, which meant that they maybe trained as actors themselves a little bit, and also they understood the vocabulary. They understood how to talk to an actor to get the result they want. And these days, many of the directors are interested in the camera, in the gadgets, in the technology. If you go to film school, it's mostly about all of that stuff, not so much about, how do you communicate to actors to get the best out of them. And so there's a learning curve for directors too. And the point is this, that actors need to be director-proof. That our job is to go there, knock it out of the park, and let the director be a conductor like of an orchestra. More of this, less of that, not trying to beg you for a performance.
Gotcha.
So training for me is very important. Yeah.
Someone just sent a question right now that has everything to do with what we're talking right now. And when you were saying about like people look at you saying you charm, you should be an actor, this happens so much here in Hollywood. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it probably happens in New York and all these big cities, but it didn't happen to me that way, but I'm a host and reporter. But people look at me and say, Gisele, I think you should be an actress. And I think absolutely the opposite. Because it's like, because you are on camera every day doesn't mean that you are ready to memorize lines and just to give yourself 100% completely for a character. I feel like I am 24 hours per day a character. And this character is called Gisele. I don't know if I'm ready to give up that character.
Well, Giselle's pretty great, so I wouldn't bother.
What do you think about this character, right? But then I tell people, guys, acting, you need to study, you need to sit, you need to lay, you need to focus. Not that my profession I don't need, but if I have an interview, I have to watch the movie. I have to know about the actor. It's something more like quick and go, quick and go, quick and go. And acting, like the question is, how important is to study for acting role? This gentleman is asking here. I don't know if it's a girl or boy. And I can answer that because I went to acting school at UCLA for the certificate program. But then the teacher said, oh my God, I hope a lot of people don't hear what I'm going to say, that stick to the hosting, stick to the reporting. You don't want to memorize lines, do you? I'm like, no. I said, can I improvise the scene? He's like, no, I want the scene from the book. So there we have a teacher here. Like, can I improvise the script, teacher?
No. Well, this is the thing, right? Improvisation is a wonderful skill to have. So don't knock that. It's a wonderful, wonderful skill to have. And also, if you think about it, acting is about being present and it's about a lot of things, but it's, being present and being in the moment, taking your attention off of yourself, putting it on external things like your partner. And so there are so many principles that are important. And when you are present, when you are really thinking, right? I'm not in my head thinking about what I'm having for dinner or family problems or anything else. I'm right here now with you. It allows me to really listen to you, actively listen to you, receive you. And so in terms of improvisation, even if it's scripted, I've had I've been on sets, you know, I'm ready to go, I've memorized, and then the star of the show decides without saying a word, oh, I'm just going to say what I want to say. And so there you are as the guest that day. And, you know, so I've been in positions where it wasn't an improvisation job. It was a scripted television show. The star of the show decided, you know, and this is the way
you do that, Eric?
well, the director came up to, so we took the first take and he said nothing that was on the page. And I stayed with him and just, you know, internally I'm going, you know, am I on the wrong set, you know? But I quickly, you know, I went with it. And as soon as they called cut, the director ran over to me and says, come here. And I go, and he's like, oh, I should have told you. He likes to do this. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, are you all right? I'm like, I'm fine. I'll go with it. I know what the scene is. I know who the character is. I know what my objective is, meaning all of my homework was done. So I could trust that that work was there. I could receive him. And I tried to say as much of the text that made sense when the opportunity was there. And when it wasn't, I made stuff up. And in a certain way, he was testing me because he was very cold to me at the beginning. And little by little, as I could hang with him, then between takes, he'd start talking to me. He wanted to know my background. That said, improvisation is an art form. There is a place for that. Sketch comedy, right? There's long and short form improv. You can train as an improv artist in and of itself, which are wonderful, wonderful skills. And then of course,
I got an A+ for improvisation, and I got a C for the acting class.
All right. Well, we'll work on the acting stuff, but that is a very, very good sign that you improvise well. There must be, you know, and I think that makes sense, you know, with all of the work that you do, right? You're interviewing me here. We have a plan and things, but you know, we're prepared. But as we're having a real conversation and thoughts come, and you know, so it's about telling the truth of that moment, you know. Stand-up comedy also, right, is another place where, hey, if you just want to say what you want to say, do stand-up. The thing about scripted material, and the reason that it's important to really learn the language and get that language in your body, it's multifold. First of all, with theater, ideally, hopefully, well, theater is about the written word, right? That it's all about language. The stage direction and all of that stuff is very much irrelevant. And what does matter is the dialogue, the words that the writers wrote. And great playwrights sweat over a comma. They bleed over a period, meaning every breath in their imagination they're putting attention to. And so when you're working on great writers like Shakespeare or Chekhov or Tennessee Williams or Arthur Miller or Aaron Sorkin or, you know, today or whoever, we owe it to them to serve their writing and to the best of our ability, make that work. Great writers, there's a musicality, there's an aesthetic to their writing, and we have to identify that so that we can serve it to be successful. So I think in the theater, there's reverence for language. In film and TV, it's a little bit different because the dialogue is not as precious. You know what that film is about the shot, that screenplays or teleplays are about the camera more than it is about the dialogue. And, you know, so there may be a little bit more flexibility, but I would, and maybe on the set, because, you know, on the set as you're working, the director and the producers, and even if they allow the writer to be there, what may have worked on the page, once we're there and it's up on its feet and we're capturing it, it's about the moment. Is it the story getting told? And sometimes what seemed to work on the page isn't necessarily going to happen in front of camera. But the thing is this in auditioning, actors have to be very, very careful. You know, let's remember, stage is the actor's medium, voice, body, imagination, actor and the audience at the end of the day, and the play starts and you do it. With film, it's the director and the editor's medium, right? The director shoots the film. And these days, with rare exception, unless you're like Quentin Tarantino, the vast majority of directors, I don't know if everybody knows this, they don't edit their films. The studio or the producers hire an editor, and sometimes, believe it or not, they don't even allow the director in the editing room. The director's job's on the set, shoot it, we've got the footage, now we're putting it together.
They don't have any saying at all?
Say again?
They don't have any saying at all?
A lot of the time, not. I know this is hard to believe in film. But very, very, very few directors have final cut on their movie. They have to give it over to the producers. And so in no uncertain terms, a movie gets put together in the editing room. I mean, right? You can have the same footage, but how you put it together tells a different story. And that's why film is such a fascinating thing, because you could have had this fantastic journey during the shooting. We could have a great script, wonderful performers, everything we shot we could love, but then it can get destroyed in the editing room. So it's a tricky thing. And then, very similar thing for television. However, auditioning. Film, as I said, is the director and the editor's medium. The writer may still be involved in the process there. And if you go in an audition in film and you don't say the words for the most part that are on the page, and you're just kind of riffing and saying things the way you want to say them or whatever.
Like I did.
Yes, that is not going to, if I write,
That will not book you the role. Let's just say.
It's not going to book you the role. They're going to think any number of things. Either A, this person can't commit themselves to the language, or we're going to get them on set and they're going to be difficult to work with, and they're going to have problems with the dialogue and all of those things. And then in television, it's even more extreme this way. Television is the producer's medium. Yes. The producers in television are the writers. So if you go into an audition, the producers, the writers are sitting there. They wrote this script. I'm assuming they like it and they're proud of it. They wrote it. Mm-hmm. And then actors come in and they're going to think that's so disrespectful, right? If you are going to go off script and you really are, like I have, for example, gone in on half-hour comedies and there wasn't a laugh to be found. The writing was horrible. And so there's a decision to be made. Do I commit to, I'm going to commit to it, the language, but in places to land a joke, to set up a joke, do I play with it in a way that I think I can make this work and hope that that will be respected? So it's a calculated risk, right? If you're going to go off script, you've got to know you're making it better, and you've got to be brilliant, and you've got to do it in a way, whatever this means, that's still respectful. So I would say 99.99% of the time, the actor's job is to say those words, personalize them, and make it work. And then later, get the gig, and then you can have conversations with the director, or when you're doing the read-through or blocking for camera, that you can have those conversations about things. But get the job. Yeah.
Oh, some people is asking here, what you just said. I mean, about the self-tape. I know you are a coach. You're teaching acting now, and a lot of Brazilians just come to Hollywood because they want to pursue a career. And you have gave me so much information already in 30 minutes. But specifically about the self-tape, about memorizing lines, and about tips how foreigners, Brazilian actors or people from another nationality, they can come to Hollywood and find a little space to just have the opportunity to show up somewhere.
Fantastic. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the paradigm shift. So I'll give you guys just a little bit of background about how things worked for the actor when I started. Then it shifted once in like 2007, 2008. And now COVID era, we're in a new shift. So
if you allow me, Eric, I forgot to ask you in the beginning, and it was a curiosity of mine, and I'm sure people will love to know that. When you said people wanted to, you say, hey, you should be an actor and stuff, but you were studying med school. When did you feel like, okay, I like med school, but I have this thing for acting? You didn't follow that because people said you're charming and cute and stuff.
No.
You at some point found this doing something else, or I don't know, like how you find it. I was since little put on with a microphone in my hand or on top of a trio electrical, which is it's a car with sound and a stage. So I was like pushed that direction. Yeah. And I felt very comfortable with that. And I never wanted to let go of the microphone ever again.
That's awesome.
But with you, if you're studying that specifically thing, how did you find the acting in the middle of like studying all this body and stuff and serious and stuff, and you're going from, oh, I think I want to be in a big screen. Oh, I want to be in theater. I think I want the spotlight. I know that's not how you think, but in the end, we know actors, they also like the spotlight. I mean, I love the spotlight. I'm sure you like the spotlight too, besides everything else that the acting career can give you. How did you find it?
What you said is wonderful. A couple of things. One is, I do love the spotlight and I don't love the spotlight. I don't know how and I've been, look, I don't need to be too personal. I mean, these are things that I've been working on, and trying to figure out for myself for a lifetime. I can be enormously gregarious and outgoing and playful and talk to everybody sometimes. And there are other times I'm profoundly shy. And I want everybody to know, all of our aspiring actors, there is no one personality type to be a performer. James Dean, I don't know that he's the best example. He died very young, tragically, so I hesitate to use him as something to aspire to, and I don't mean it in this way. But one of the things about James Dean, right? Iconic movie star, made 3 movies before he died, 25, 26 years old. And to this day, if you walk around Hollywood, you see his image everywhere. He's as big of a Hollywood icon as anybody. But one of the things that's interesting about him, when he started out acting in New York and he was at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg and all of these other people who eventually, like Marilyn Monroe and Marlon Brando, and Dennis Hopper, all of these wonderful people who went on to have terrific careers. I've seen interviews where they talked about James Dean, and something like for the first year in class, he sat in the back of the room with these sort of very schoolboy kind of glasses on, did not say a word to anybody, for a year, didn't get up to work for a year. Uh-huh. And then he got up for the first time, and everybody in the class was like, holy, what is going on here? All of this is to say, super, super shy, super profoundly shy to the point of like difficulty getting out of bed. And then when he opened his mouth and expressed himself, that's what came out. He was as raw, trained, but in terms of his desire to express himself, super raw, super bold, super brave. And this is a shy person. So I want everybody to understand there's no one personality type. And so what you're talking about, yes, I mean, when I was younger, I went to an arts camp one year. During summer camps, I would, do little skits about, social justice and things even back in the day. I had a lot of friends in high school that were theater students, but I was one of those kids that kind of crossed over. I didn't belong to any one group or clique. I kind of got along with everybody. So I had a lot of theater friends and I was exposed to it and I had a lot of interest in it, but I was scared to death. I was scared. So when I started to participate in that way. So when I started college, and I was a biology major, and I was at the University of Arizona, and Arizona is very warm. And I was spending a lot of time on 90-degree days when my friends were all out at the pool eating sandwiches. I was in the basement of some laboratory.
Yes.
And as a young man, that became less and less appealing to me. And then I realized I don't really want to be a doctor. I think I just want to play one, you know, on TV or in film or on stage or something. And so, you know, that's how and then in my sophomore year of college, I was brave enough to sign up for an acting class for the first time.
That was when? Which year?
That was in 97, 98. I took Drama 100, which was the basic drama course. And then as an undergrad, my senior year, I taught that course and got graduate school credit. So 4 years later, I taught the first class I ever took. And I didn't know what I was doing, if we're going to be honest. Teaching acting and coaching actors and audition prep is a big part of my career now and something that I love. And I just feel blessed that I had the opportunity to do those things and to teach it even before I knew what it was. And it's allowed me to grow in that way, both as an artist myself and also helping others, because that's a big part of my life. And I get tremendous joy out of helping actors grow and watching them build their careers and have success. It's a phenomenal feeling. It is. Should I talk about the old paradigm and the new paradigm a little bit?
Yes.
I feel like I'm doing a monologue. Is that okay? Do you have any?
No, not doing a monologue. This is great. I'm getting the questions and it's amazing that people is participating, engaged and stuff. Yeah, please do. And people wants to know about like what you do with the acting career.
Let's talk about that.
COVID times.
So you guys, so let's talk about kind of the three stages in terms of how the business worked for us as actors since the last 30 years, let's say. I mean, I can't even believe it's 30 years. I want to choke when I think that it's been that long. You know, but basically, now remember, you know, when I began, people didn't have personal computers, people didn't have cell phones, right? Everything, you know, so for an actor, your tool, but you had your headshot, your 8x10 black and white headshot with the resume stapled on the back.
Remember that?
You know, you would take class and you would try to get an agent and you would get yourself in, and these still exist, actor showcases that ideally agents and managers and casting directors will come to watch you, to represent you, hopefully. And even in LA then, but certainly in New York where I was, you got yourself into a play. You got yourself into plays, and representatives would come see plays, and hopefully you'd get a good write-up in the New York Times or the Daily News or the Post or something. And, you know, get a little buzz, and people would come see you and hopefully sign you. And that would hopefully begin the merger into a film and television career. And the idea was get yourself into some plays, get representation, you'll get on a soap opera. Because at that time with film and TV in New York, films would come in. I mean, New York is an industry town, no question. But the majority of the soap operas were in New York. And so for actors in New York, if you could get yourself on a soap opera, by day you do the soap opera, at night you do a play, and you've got a very fulfilling creative life. You're making a little money. I was fortunate to live that kind of life for a while too. And and you know, there were periodicals like Backstage West, Dramalog magazine. They would come out every week, and there'd be different articles, but in the back there would be classified ads that would have auditions, whether it was theater, independent film, or studio films coming in with some breakdowns. And so you would, you know, get that. You would submit your picture and resume by mail. You know, you get a big 8.5 by 11 or 12 envelope and put your picture and resume in and put "do not fold" on the envelope and send it in, and you hope to hear, you know. Or you would make a phone call to the office and the secretary would be nasty to you, right? Don't call here.
It still happens now these days.
Yes, of course. And you would sometimes, you know, spend time going from office to office to office if you could get past security. And there was a time, things have changed. Now office buildings have security. You can't get up to the floor where the office is. Back then, you kind of could most of the time. And so even to save postage or to hope that you bump into the casting director, just bringing your materials, you know, and that's how you would hope to, you know, get a job and all of those things. The interesting thing was breakdown services, right? Breakdown services still exists today. And on a, God, is it daily or weekly? I'm not even sure anymore. I think it's daily. Auditions, right, are listed on these breakdown services with all of the roles that are being cast. And they go to all of the agents, all of the casting directors, all of the producers, all of that. It goes out. It was illegal, at least that, right, for actors to get breakdown services. So we would still try to get them. Somehow somebody through a friend they would get a subscription somehow, or they'd have a relationship where they would pay somebody to send them to them every day. And this is how you knew about the parts and everything. So if you could get your hands on the breakdown services, you might have a foothold even as an actor without representation to submit yourself. Of course, they're not going to give as much attention to unsolicited material, but every now and again, that kind of hustle could pay off. And, you know, the way things worked at that time in terms of who took jobs, there was a real separate. Movie stars were movie stars, and they did movies. TV stars were TV stars, and they did television. And had the lead roles. Working actors were working actors, and they played the guest parts, the co-stars on TV, and did commercials. Commercials were working actors, right? Every now and again, you'd see a familiar face. Oh, I remember this person from the Tide commercial. The A-list movie stars would be insulted if somebody were to ask them to do a guest spot. Brad Pitt doing Friends, for example, was an example of a huge departure. In the prime of his career, he's going on Friends. 5 years earlier, he would not have done that. And what this movie stars would do to make extra income, they wouldn't do commercials in the United States, but they do commercials, and you guys can probably vouch for this. You would see A-list American movie stars doing commercials in South America, in Europe, in Asia, in different parts of the world, but they wouldn't do it in the United States. Now, of course, we know that's different. Now, they will pay millions and millions of dollars to get a movie star to do a campaign or a series of commercials, right? George Clooney doing Nescafe. He does all these Nescafe, for example. So this is a very common thing to happen. So so this was the first paradigm. It was very, you know, your feet on the ground, having to manually do everything. Communication was a phone call or the mail, and things took time, you know, for those processes to happen. And it was a lot of that. And then in 2007, 2008, the Screen Actors Guild, I'm sorry, the Writers Guild, not the Screen Actors Guild. The Writers Guild went on strike for about 14 weeks. And those 14 weeks of negotiations were profound and had consequences in terms of how the industry changed. So what happened was the writers wanted a better deal, right? From residuals to when shows go into reruns and all of that, you know, you get paid again. And so all of these deals for the writers, they wanted a better deal, and they decided to go on strike. So everything shut down. The producers, of course, still, right? If they once they were kind of getting through content that was already in the can, they'd already shot and could finish airing. At a certain point, there was no content. So what did they do? They weren't going to lose money. And this was the birth of reality television And primetime game shows like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was on what, ABC at 8 p.m. in the United States in primetime. Game shows prior to that were daytime television. You know, that was only on during the day. Now the major networks were creating reality TV and game shows in prime time. The reason and what they discovered was they can work with non-union people. They don't need union writers. It's super cheap to produce. And as they discovered, not only is it inexpensive to produce, the masses love it and they make a ton of money. And so even after the strike was over, we have seen reality TV has taken over. And even primetime game shows now during COVID are back because content again has run short. So they're able to social distance easily enough, produce those things safely. And so even that is back now. And so that was the shift. And so what happened with the birth of, you know, the reality TV and all of that, now we started to, and Netflix, for example, I think in 2007 started its streaming service. So now we have the birth of the internet and personal computers. Everybody has a personal computer. Everybody now has a cell phone and can text message. There's social media sites and all of those things where people can interact. And these things all started to grow. And the shift there was now movie stars, I'll do TV.
Yeah.
And TV stars go, I'll do commercials. And so for the working actor, even though we have, you know, Prime and Netflix and HBO and Showtime and all of these streaming, Apple TV, all of these things, and the appearance is that more content, more work, more opportunity.
Yes.
That is kind of a yes and a no. In a certain way, this is true. And in a certain way, because those lines no longer exist, you have well-known actors who may be a former movie star or a television star going, I'm going to do 2 scenes as a co-star on one episode of a TV show. So those lines have been blurred. And so, yes, more content, seemingly more opportunity, but that trickle-down effect has changed. So, you know, a working actor can go in for a guest star in a TV show for 2 scenes and what have you, and you can be sitting in the waiting room with people you recognize from television for the last 20 years, and you're like, you know, and the casting director's hugging and kissing them all, and you think, not to be deterred by that, by the way. Information and knowledge is power, and none of this is to discourage everybody. It's to let everybody know that this is how it works. So that, you know, and along with all of that, you know, content secrecy started to happen. In the past, when you had gotten an audition, they would send you the entire script, right? You'd read the entire script, so you'd have more context to what you're auditioning for and more information. And these days, everything's secretive. They don't want to release the script. You get just the sides. You know, that's changed a lot. So that's not in the best interest of the actor to be successful when you don't have a great sense of what you're serving. And then also out of this era came the importance of being a hyphenate, a jack of many trades, if we can say that. Being an actor is not enough. You need to write, you need to direct, you need to produce, you need to be able to do costume and makeup or hair design, or, you know, it's very, very important to be able to do other things well, to do multiple things well. And I found that in my own career. When the acting's going, great. And then when the acting's not going, I write and I direct and I produce and I teach. So you know, it's everybody's career is going to have peaks and valleys, regardless of how successful you are. Everybody, right? It's the very nature of life. Nobody can just stay at one level forever. It's impossible. I'm not making this up. We can look at those that came before us, and you know, everybody has their time, and even in the greatest of success for years and years and years, I tell everybody all the time: Steven Spielberg gets told no, Meryl Streep gets told no. We don't believe that can be possible, but it is, and they hear no a lot more than they hear yes. You know, not about acting, but Steven Spielberg can spend 20 years trying to get a movie made. And he doesn't spend his own money. Nobody spends their own money, right? $250 million is $250 million.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and unless you're Mel Gibson, then you may, he went all in on one movie and did very, very well. In the early 2000s, but that's a big exception to the rule. He was locked out of Hollywood, and he had the wherewithal to do so. But all of this is to say, you know, that everybody gets told no, and it's important to have multiple skills in this field so that you can do different things, make a living doing different things, stay buoyant, stay positive, and be able to have perspective. And it's also important to have a sense of humor. Hollywood is 8th grade dating. It's like dating in middle school, right? Like when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, everything is about who's popular right now. Whoever's popular, that's who I like. Oh, this person's out now? Ooh, not them. Do you know, there's a lot of followers. I'm sorry, but this is true. And I encourage everybody to be leaders, to manifest their own career and their own life, to create your own work, find people around you that you care about, that you trust, that you enjoy working with. There is something about being an actor that we get a lot of satisfaction out of a stranger going, I choose you. Mm-hmm. That feels very good, right? You walk into a room, other people walk into a room, and they all decide, we want this young man or we want this young lady or whatever. And these strangers choosing us, there's something very exciting about that. But one of the things that I discovered and learned over time, and particularly as you start to get older and time becomes more valuable to you, you learn a lot of important lessons. And the single most important thing to me right now is not about necessarily working on projects with strangers or having somebody else give me the nod of approval, if we can call it that, but with my circle of friends and artists that I have built and relationships that I built over the past 30 some odd years, I want to work with people I love. I want to work with people that I think are enormously talented. I want to surround myself in environments where it's so creative and people are all pulling and pushing together, and that it's for, you know, all the creative decisions and everything else are for the best of the project and not about any one person. And I don't want to be in rehearsals or on sets that are toxic, where people are looking you up and down and making you feel like they wish you weren't here. And you know, and a lot of established people can be that way. It doesn't seem so. There's wonderful people too. Do not misunderstand me. Incredible, incredible people who are highly successful and just amazing, amazing. Don't misunderstand me. But there's also people who are threatened, that we imagine, how could you possibly be threatened by somebody showing up for 3 days on your set? But we're human. We're human. And just because somebody makes money or just because somebody's on a billboard doesn't mean they have self-worth, doesn't mean they have self-esteem. All the money in the world doesn't make somebody a person, doesn't make somebody whole. And as an artist, this goes back to, it's not about a job, it's about a career. It's important to me emotionally, physically, and mentally healthy, to have longevity, to be able to take those bumps and bruises along the way and dust yourself off and keep getting back up and believing and going for it. Nobody gets through unscathed. Nobody does. And so when you can understand that, and you understand this is like dating in middle school, and you can have a little bit of a sense of humor about it, it takes a lot of pressure off. And it allows you to breathe a little bit and relax and be yourself and be your best self. When we are nervous, when our attention goes on ourself, our forehead our shoulders are up to here, we can't listen, we can't receive. And this is important with auditioning. Everybody needs to understand the audition begins when you walk into the office, because the person signing everybody in who's sitting behind that desk is going to be running that office in 5 years. And they're observing people in the green room. And when it comes down to it, the casting director is going to say, did this person behave when they were in the green room? How did they conduct themselves? If they're going to lay something on the line, they want to know they're hiring somebody who's responsible. So understanding, it starts the second you walk into the green room just to sign in. And then certainly when you get called into the room to audition, we can be so caught up in what I prepared, the audition, that we can forget to be a person walking in the room. They want to get to know you. They want to fall in love with you. And so if you're present and you can be with them and answer their questions and be happy to be there, then once you get to the auditioning piece and you're prepared and you knock that out of the park, you put yourself in the best possible position to be successful. But don't forget to be present, and don't forget to be a person, because if you walk in and you're not present, you've already distanced yourself from them, and you're already having to overcome something in the work that didn't have to be there to begin with. So anyway, that's a little bit about the auditioning and philosophy on that. So let's talk about COVID, because
there's so many questions about, especially the Brazilians. They really, they saying, oh my God, with the COVID, there is no auditions, there are no things to do. How is the acting field during COVID? What are you doing besides teaching? Do you still want to act? It's so many questions, so I don't know if we're going to get to everything, because there is a Q&A, so people are supposed to also ask us questions. But what happened to the market this year with the whole COVID situation, Eric?
Perfect. So this is, in my career, the second paradigm shift, right? The first one, as I said, was during that strike, and things shifted. Now it's shifting again. So a few things have happened. The self-tape. This was already happening pre-COVID, right? It wasn't universal, but it was already beginning to happen. The business itself in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years has become less centralized, meaning it was LA and it was in the United States. It was LA and it was New York. That's really where the industry was. And as an aspiring actor, you kind of really needed, particularly for film and television, you needed to be in Los Angeles or thereabouts, or New York or thereabouts. Of course, cities like Chicago, Minneapolis, in particular for theater, still to this day are amazing. Washington, D.C., amazing theater cities, and still places you can go and work and make a living doing theater. But really, even with theater and absolutely film and television, it was Los Angeles and New York. And then little by little, over the last 10 years or so, Toronto, Canada becomes a hot spot for the industry. Vancouver, Canada becomes a hot spot for the industry in North America. And then in the United States, a number of the states began to work on tax deals, tax rebates, meaning they wanted to encourage film and TV production to come to their states, to leave California. And about 10 years ago, there became this wave of what we call runaway production, that productions that normally would happen in California, that other states were offering better money deals and tax deals. So North Carolina is one of them. Atlanta, Georgia is one of them. The state of New Mexico is one of them. Breaking Bad, for example, one of the biggest television shows, that shot entirely in New Mexico, right? Inexpensive to live there, inexpensive to shoot there. And New Mexico came up with tax rebates, not just giving them tax breaks, but what they did was they would figure out based on the budget what the taxes would be and what the rebate would be. And then they would give the production that money in advance. So instead of getting it in post or getting it after the production where the money's really no use anymore, except for maybe, in publicity and advertising, they could take that money and actually use it in production. So this is very attractive, and this has been going on for 10 years, and it's increasing even more. This is going more and more in that direction. So I do think that Hollywood is not going anywhere. I do think that New York is not going anywhere, despite, everything I read. Oh, everybody's leaving Hollywood. Everybody's leaving California. The taxes are too high now during COVID. Everybody's going to Texas where there's, lower taxes and, big cities like California and what. All right, so be it. People are going to do what they want to do. I think the other side of this in COVID, I think LA and New York are still going to be industry towns. I think a whole heck of a lot of work is still going to be done here. I think the vast majority of those that are already established in these cities, I hope and pray, are surviving and will be okay and able to stay. But this is true. The decentralization of Hollywood is happening, and it's only going to increase more. So with the self-tape, which began, forgive me, but I have had negative feelings about this because at first I felt like, and casting directors and producers will forgive me, the idea that actors have to self-tape, right? That the responsibility is you have to have a camera, whether it's your cell phone, your computer, you've got to have a device, and you have to have internet access. And most of us do, okay, fine. But the whole onus is gone on the actor. We're going to email you the material. In your own home, you've got to spend money on equipment. You've got to get light. They sell these now relatively inexpensively, for example, on Amazon. All of the actors should invest in this. You can do it rather inexpensively, but you get a lighting kit, right? You get a tripod, to put your now they make tripods for cell phones, iPhones, even computers and tablets. You have to invest in that. You need to have some place in your home that you can use as a background, and make those choices. You have to bother the people in your life, like family members or friends or lovers or whatever, to go, hey, I need you to read this other part so I can audition for it, right? And if you don't have somebody who lives with you or somebody nearby, and now during COVID, where we're all social distancing, this becomes even more difficult. Like, okay, so you've got to find creative ways, maybe even, to have that other voice, or the other person to be acting with, right? If it's a scene, you've got to hear the other dialogue. They're going to be up. So and the casting directors don't have to have brick and mortar, meaning they don't have to have an office anymore. They don't have to pay rent anymore on an office. They don't have to have multiple employees necessarily or pay them the same. They can be in bed and send out the breakdowns and look at actor videotapes. And the reason that this part of it upsets me is actors and artists very, 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 very often have to pay the price for things. I mean, monetarily, either have to pay for things or don't get paid for things that they deserve to be paid for. Actors want to work. They'll work for very little money or work for free. And producers know that. And casting directors know that. And agents know that. And there's a little bit of the perspective of the world. You presumably do something that you love, so that should be good enough. Why do we have to pay you? Because I'm an accountant and I hate what I do. So since I hate what I do, nobody
I get paid for it.
Right. Nobody thinks twice about you've got to pay an accountant.
Yes.
But when it comes to artists, it's like, oh, you have this wonderful life. You're able to express yourself and tell stories.
Yeah.
You need to suffer. You don't need money. It's good. So that's a part of it. And so when I see things shifting to where the monetary responsibility falls to the actor, I don't love that. All right. Everything in life is simultaneously a blessing and a curse. Nothing is just all good to all bad. Here's the plus side. Oh, one more unplus side. You and I were talking about this. There is no substitute for being in the room. There's no substitute for being in the room, having that interaction with a live person. And so that doesn't help us, right? Because that's taken out of the equation. The plus side is we now have control over what we're putting out. You can do as many takes of your self-tape audition as you want till you get it right. You can edit things together if you want to so that it looks great. You can, as I said, with the lighting and choosing a background or whatever it is, you can create production value to something in a way, that you wouldn't in the room. And by the very nature of doing self-tape, we're already working on camera. So if you're auditioning for film and TV, and my performance is dynamic and bold and truthful on this screen, nobody's concerned about whether you can act on camera because you're doing it. And this is one of the things that I want to encourage everybody, because I'm teaching now and coaching people all day, every day online since March.
How is it though? Are you liking to do online?
I am. Again, I can't wait to get back into the live classroom, but I do have to say, this has also opened up opportunities. I teach at institutions where even when we're live, I have students from all over the world. Our wonderful Rafa, one of our powerhouses of this festival, was one of my students at UCLA. And so I have the great privilege of teaching people even live and in person all over the world. But of course, they have to come to Los Angeles for that to happen.
Yes.
Right now, I'm teaching everybody. I have students on virtually every continent right now: South America, Europe, North America, Africa, Asia, I mean, all over the world. So I'm able to reach young artists and aspiring actors now through this screen, that in one class, simultaneously, I have people on multiple continents. And that's really exciting in the way that that can bring people together. And then being that this is the way we're going to be for a while, that this is what entertainment's going to be, that this is the direction we're moving in. It's a wonderful opportunity for actors to begin to relax in front of the camera, to be able to understand how, even though this is a screen, that I can be physical, I can be alive, I can create environment, I can create you, the other character, and I can tell story. And so I think that's a very liberating thing. And I think that that is going to those that are working now in this way and studying now in this way, it is only going to benefit everybody moving forward, because I believe this isn't going away. I think even after COVID goes away, I think even after we have a vaccine, goes away, have a vaccine, even when we're able to be in rooms again. I think there's multiple things going on here. I think that this is the beginning of a new paradigm. I think that they're going to utilize this throughout the process, at least early on. And then, let's say I'm casting a movie and there's a particular part, we'll get it down to 3 people and then we'll bring them in. But up to that point, I don't think what we used to call cattle calls, where every agency in town is sent and they sit in a room and see hundreds of actors for a part. Yeah. I think that's
not going to happen anytime soon, right?
Huh?
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
No, and quite frankly, moving forward, I think that's kind of going to be over. I think that they're going to do all the legwork, all the groundwork, get it down to a certain number of people for each part this way. It's just money smart, right? If you think about it, for them on their end, it's money smart. And if it's money smart, that's the way it's going to go. We have to remember, this is a business. I am an artist and I'm also in a business. And I see myself in 2 parts. There are times where I need to be the artist and the artist needs to be up front and express themselves. And there are times where the artist needs to go away and take a nap so the business person can come forward and be tough, and sort of separating those things. So from the business standpoint, it's money. And I really think that moving forward, auditioning, that the processes are going to start this way. And then if you make the cut and you get down to the last 2 or 3 people, then they're going to bring you into the room when we're at a place where that can happen and pair people up and see chemistry and those sorts of things. So I don't think this is going away. And I think this is very much going to be a part of the future and the industry. I think that these ideas of branding and being an influencer online, it's not for everybody. It's not for me. But I think this is the way of the world. I mean, we see, Jennifer Aniston on a daily basis, for example, wonderful career, world famous person. Day in and day out, she's, putting things on Instagram because she's wearing a certain lipstick, or meaning this idea of self-promotion and branding, building a brand and influencing and all of that. It doesn't have to be for everybody. And I'm not suggesting that one has to do those things to have a career. However, this is the way things are moving. And we know now too, people have 1 million followers online because they do a silly dance or something. And the next thing we know, NBC is signing them up with a television deal because they have 1.5 million followers. They've already got a built-in audience, if you will. So it's tricky and it's interesting. I think this is the way of the world. I think Zoom auditioning, even shooting certain projects on the Zoom, productions now even are sending people to different locations. They've got equipment there or whatever, and people are shooting in separate places under, in safe ways. And so, I think everybody put your seatbelt on, because this is going to continue even when we get back live and in person. The question about how the things that are going back into production are shooting, I can't say one blanket thing. Most things are not, because most things are more complicated and they just can't do it. But little by little, there are productions, TV and film, that are, getting the wheels going again, and they're starting up. But, essentially now that there is testing, everybody's getting tested 14 days out, then 3 days out. Then when you show up on the set, no temperature, no COVID, and everybody wears masks all day. The actors wear masks until it's time to shoot. They take the mask off, they shoot, they put the mask on, and so this is how it's going to go. But all of the productions, everything, they're using all of that testing, and there's only going to be more and more of it, thank goodness. and more readily available and more reliable. And so, yes, and there's already been my friend Hank, who I talked to you about earlier, Without a Trace. He has a new show on ABC called For Life.
Okay.
They're shooting now again in New York, but they started up again 2 months ago. They got shut down for 2 weeks because some positive cases showed up. So they had to shut down production, and now they're back again. So it's touch and go, and we'll see.
Do you think maybe things will get better after we have the vaccine? Maybe.
I think so. I hope so. I think so.
That's the idea. We have been on for like 1 hour, 15 minutes, and questions are coming and coming, but I feel like you have answered most of the questions, because we talked about self-taping. How can an actor who has a career somewhere else but doesn't have credits here can get an agents in USA?
Let's address that. I mean, that's a wonderful, wonderful question. And I don't know. I mean, I can talk about, sending email, sending a cover letter, writing a really good email, introducing yourself, sending your picture and your resume. I think doing research on who you are sending things to is very, very important. It took me a long time to learn this, because back in the day when I was starting out, I would just go through, the agency guides and stuff, and I would just choose an agent or a name that looked good to me, whatever that means, and just write them a letter and send it. And I'm sending, a letter about representation, theatrical representation, say in film and TV, and this person does commercials. Meaning, do your research. Make sure that you're sending, what are you asking for? Be clear about what you're asking for. This is a big thing too. Be clear you want representation. Be clear, sometimes we can be a little shy, or we don't want to be too abrasive or something, and we can write a really nice letter but never ask for anything. Be clear about what you want. Don't make the assumption, because I'm an aspiring actor and I'm sending an email to an agent, that they're automatically going to think, oh, this person wants representation. I know that sounds obvious, but don't forget to ask for what you want and what you need. And do some background. If you know their client list, you know who they represent, and there's somebody you really like, who you admire, or say, I love your taste. Make them feel special. You don't have to, but authentically, people are people. And certainly in representation and producers, they get a million correspondents, family members, will you represent my cousin? Like family members will ask for things. And if they're not doing things for family members, why should they do something for a stranger? So the more you can personalize that you can make them feel special by doing a little homework and making them feel in the letter that I chose you. I'm not just mailing 100 letters to agents and hoping something sticks. Really take the time to do that research, to try to connect with an individual, because what you want in terms of good representation, being at William Morris or Paradigm, right? Everybody wants to be with a big agency. I was when I started out. What you can discover early on is, at the big agencies, somebody new like me in my 20s, I was on the D list, meaning they had Brad Pitt, they had Tom Cruise, that's the A list, then they got a B list, then they got a C list, right? And you want somebody to believe in you, to be excited about you, to be hungry for you. Just because you're at a great agency doesn't mean they're going to work for you. And maybe they will, but it doesn't necessarily mean so. And at a small agency too, I would recommend, if we had to say an either or situation, I would rather young aspiring upcoming actors be at a smaller agency that's got some juice, but they're younger, they're hungrier, they're smaller. All of their clientele matters, right? There's not a lot of, oh, we'll just see.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
You know, and if you can get somebody to be excited about you and to believe in you, they will work for you. If you're just another signing, you may get lost in the shuffle. And so I in terms of being in a foreign country, in many ways, I think that matters less and less and less because of the way things are working now. I can't say that, for example, if a casting director is casting a project in Los Angeles and actors are submitting from Brazil, whether they think to themselves, if this job's in Los Angeles, this person's a long way away, do I not invest in them or give them a shot? I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you 10 years ago, you should be in New York or LA to be able to work in New York or LA. I don't know that that's true anymore. People can get on a plane. I think the best way to make these decisions is to focus more on your life, where you want to be, what makes you happy, what kind of career do you want to have? And I mean, there is nothing wrong beginning a career doing theater, meeting people in your home country, building relationships, doing film and TV in your home country, building that foundation. And then, you know, if and when the time comes, hey, I'm going to come to the United States, for example. But, you know, I know internationally, film and television all around the world, because of the technology, first and foremost, is more accessible, right? And people on lower budgets can get a crew together and a team together and make a short film or even make a feature film on a small enough budget. So these things are possible. And I am a big believer in creating your own work and manifesting your own work. You know, especially as an actor, there, you know, it's important to have an acting reel. I left that out. Yeah. You know, they used to be on these massive VHS tapes, you know, and you'd have to get it copied and all that. You know, now everything is, you know, you can airdrop it or upload it or whatever. I think it's a good thing to put a reel together. When you get professional work, add that to the reel, but you can even get friends together, find great material, shoot it, and begin to put work together with a resume. Everybody has to start somewhere. Nobody shows up with 100 credits. Nobody just arrives. Everybody starts somewhere. And so if that resume has no real jobs, but you took a couple of acting classes and you put that on the resume and other things that you've done or special skills, and little by little you build these things, and little by little you build a reel. So you know, if you're going to pick up your life and move to a new country, that is a very brave thing to do. Oh, incredibly brave and bold, tremendous. And I encourage you all to do that. But live the life you want to live. And those other things fall into place. If you've been to Los Angeles and you don't like it here, I wouldn't force yourself to move here if you can be happier in another place and you can build a life and a career there. And I guess what I'm saying is I think that this industry is becoming more and more international, less centralized, as I said. And who knows, in the next 10 years, I think, you know, Hollywood's still going to be Hollywood, New York's still going to be New York, London's still going to be London, Rio's still going to be Rio. But I think these industries are building, and I think it's about a life more than it is about a job. And I think that if you make choices in your life that make you happy, and you're preparing, right, to create your own luck, as we said, when timing comes that you're prepared and ready, good things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
so we can end with a great message. I know you start acting, producing, directing, teaching, and I know I'm not allowed to ask this question. What's your favorite one? But where is your heart in right now? Because we're gonna end this panel right now in the next 5 minutes. But I want to know, as a human being who has many talents, you have shared so much with us for an hour and a half. Where is your heart in right now? In everything together? Or you'd say, hey, Giselle, produce is great, directing is amazing. I love teaching, but acting is where my heart is. Is that one, or you just combine everything and say, hey, I feel like it's a full package. I love everything, and that's it?
That's a great question. And in a certain way, it's like asking a parent who their favorite child is.
I knew it.
I'm not a parent.
Terrible question.
Not yet, at least. But that's kind of what I imagine it feels like in a certain way, because I love them all, and for different reasons. However, I don't want to give you a cop-out answer.
It's fine.
But here's the thing. I mean, acting was my first love. It found me. And I'll tell you, from the first time I got up in front of people and did this thing, I felt like there was nothing better in this world.
Oh, that's great.
I still feel that way. I think it is at its best the most miraculous art form. We embody and embrace the human condition. We identify truths about life and about people and relationships, and we express that without judgment. We're in service of story, and that is exhilarating. And to be able to have an impact on people's lives and make them think things and feel things and learn things, what a gift, right?
Yeah, what a gift.
So, I mean, in that way, it's my first love, and how we fall in love again in life, and they become more mature and for different reasons and things, but we never forget our first true love. And so I would say acting is my first true love, and if I had to choose one, I guess that would be it. I will say
you just chose.
I just chose. But I will say this, I also chose to take a break about 8 years ago. With film and TV, I did a couple of plays that I produced with people I wanted to produce it with, and had great both artistic success and critical success. And, we broke even, which in theater, getting your money back is huge. So all of that was extraordinary. But in terms of film and television, I decided to take a break about 8 years ago. For some of the reasons that I was saying. I was getting cast in things or going out on things that didn't turn me on. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, 20 auditions of not great projects to book another one that's not great. Mm-hmm. Sounds spoiled, but I was at a place where that just didn't interest me in that moment. And I spent more time writing movies and selling scripts and producing short films and those sorts of things, all of which I still love. But I'm in a place now. I've matured. I'm older. I feel like I'm coming into my own in a way. And I'm kind of ready to go back. I needed that break. And I'm finding the hunger and the desire to do it again. So I'm going to. Yeah. We'll see.
Wonderful.
But I teach, and I'm with actors every day, and I'm in the art form every day. And if I wasn't in that way, I would miss acting a lot more than I had, because it's not gone. I'm still doing it all of the time, working on craft with actors.
Look at who is with us, Livia.
Hi, Eric. How are you guys? I'm the bad cop here. I'm so sorry. I know this is so entertaining, but we have a panel right after this one, so we need to wrap up.
Did you like the conversation?
Oh, yes. And I know there are a bunch of questions. I know that we could stay talking here forever. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing all your knowledge with us.
It's My pleasure. It was such a joy. And thank you, Livia, and thank you to Rafa and Giselle. You're extraordinary. Thank you so much. Just fantastic. So much fun to talk to you, all of you. Thank you.
Wonderful. All the material you shared, all the information, all the tips, I'm very grateful. And I'm sure everybody is going to have access to this interview right after La Brief, who was here with us during the panel, had the pleasure to, send questions, participate. You answered pretty much everything, Eric. But after that, everyone's going to have access to this panel because we're going to put on social media, YouTube, and everyone can have access to everything you shared with us. So thank you very, very much. This was truly wonderful.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. It was a joy, and anytime. And thank you so much. And I hope everybody got a lot out of it. And I wish everybody the best with their, first and foremost, their health and well-being. And then secondly, with their career and their training and all of those things.
Amazing. Eric Scott Gould, speaking about acting career in Hollywood, actor, director, producer, and teaching as well acting. So thank you very much, Eric. We'll see you in another time. And stay with us tomorrow for the closing night.
I will indeed. I appreciate it. I'll see you then.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.